I was not always a man of sorrow. Once, I was filled with hope. When I first met Jesus, I believed he was the one who would free our people. The Romans ruled over us, taxed us heavily, and crushed any who resisted. We had waited for a Messiah for generations, and when I saw Jesus, I thought, this is him. I was a man of numbers, skilled with coins and trade. That is why the others trusted me to keep our money. It was not a position of honor, but it was necessary. We traveled from town to town, spreading the message, and someone had to manage the little we had. I was proud to be among the 12. I listened to his words, saw his miracles, and marveled at his wisdom. But as time passed, doubt crept into my heart. Jesus spoke of love, of turning the other cheek, of a kingdom not of this world. But I wanted freedom now. The others followed him without question. But I began to wonder, was he truly the one we had waited for? It was not one moment that changed me, but many. I watched as crowds gathered, hoping Jesus would lead them in revolt. But he did not. Instead, he spoke of peace. He angered the Pharisees and the priests, but he did not seize power. He told us that the first would be last and the last would be first. He told us to give away what we had, to love even our enemies. And yet, I had seen his power. I had seen him command the wind and waves, heal the sick, even raise the dead. I thought, why does he not use this power to defeat the Roman? Others whispered too. Some among the people thought he was dangerous. The priests feared he would bring Rome's wrath upon us. The rich and powerful said he was a fraud. And I began to wonder if they were right. I still followed, but my heart was no longer sure. I held the money bag a little tighter. I watched him a little closer. And then came the woman with the perfume. She broke the jar and poured it on his feet, pure nard, expensive beyond measure. The smell filled the house. I could not believe the waste. I said, this could have been sold and given to the poor. Jesus looked at me, his eyes full of sadness. He said, she has done a beautiful thing for me. The poor you will always have, but you will not always have me. Something inside me broke then. Did he not care? Did he not see how much that was worth? I had followed him, believed in him, trusted him, and yet he let this happen. I had given up everything. And for what? The doubt grew into anger. I did not go to the priests to betray him. Not at first. I only wanted to talk, to understand. They were waiting for someone like me, someone close to Jesus. They spoke of how dangerous he was, how he would lead our people to ruin. They said Rome would come down on us because of him. They made an offer. 30 pieces of silver. Not much. Barely a servant's price. But it was not about the money. It was about forcing Jesus to act. I thought if they arrest him, he will have to show his power. If he is truly the Messiah, he will not let them take him. He will rise up. He will finally take his throne. That night, we went to the garden. Jesus was praying. The others were sleeping. My heart pounded as I led the soldiers through the trees. Their torches flickered in the darkness. Jesus looked up as we approached. He was not afraid. I hesitated. I could still turn back. I could warn him. But something in his eyes told me he already knew. I stepped forward and kissed his cheek. Judas, he said, do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? The soldiers seized him. Peter drew his sword, but Jesus stopped him. He did nothing to resist. This was not how it was supposed to happen. I watched as they took him away. I waited for him to fight back, to call down angels, to show his glory. But he did nothing, and then I knew I had made a terrible mistake. The next morning they sentenced him to die. I ran back to the priests, threw the silver at their feet. "I have sinned," I said. "I have betrayed innocent blood." They laughed. "What is that to us?" I stumbled into the streets, the coins scattered in the dust. I had thought I could force his hand. I had thought I could make him reveal his power. I had thought, but I had only led him to death. I could not bear it. I could not undo what I had done. I wandered the streets, my heart a stone in my chest. The sound of the silver pieces still echoed in my mind as they clattered to the temple floor. They had meant nothing. The city was awake now. People moved through the streets, whispering about the trial, about Jesus. Some cheered for his death, others wept. I saw Peter in the crowd, his face pale and drawn. His eyes met mine, and for a moment I thought he might strike me. But then he turned away, lost in his own sorrow. I had heard he had denied Jesus 3 times. We had both failed him. But Peter could still beg for forgiveness. I could not escape the weight of my sin. I thought of going back to Galilee, but what life would I return to? There was no home for me anymore. I had thrown away everything, my purpose, my place, my very soul. I walked out of the city, into the hills where the olive trees grew. The wind whispered through the branches, but it did not bring comfort. I found a tree. I tied the rope, and I stepped off the branch. I did not expect to wake again.
But I did. There was nothing but darkness. Cold, empty, a place beyond time, beyond life.
A voice spoke, gentle, sorrowful. "Judas." I knew that voice. I turned, and there he was. Jesus. He reached out a hand. The same hands that had healed the sick, broken bread, lifted the fallen. The same hands that now bore the marks of nails. They told me, "You were dead," I whispered. I was. I could not meet his gaze. I do not deserve forgiveness. No one does. I shook my head. I betrayed you. Yes, his voice did not hide the pain.
But I did not die only for the righteous. I died for sinners.
I looked up. His eyes held no anger. Only sorrow. Only love. "Judas," he said, "do you truly wish to be lost forever?" Tears burned my eyes. I had believed my fate was sealed, that there was no hope for me. But now, I reached for his hand. Light broke through the darkness, and I awoke. I do not know if it was a vision or something more, but when I opened my eyes, the morning sun was rising over the hills. I was alive. The rope had snapped, or perhaps something had cut it. I do not know where I will go from here. I cannot return to the 12. I cannot change what I have done. But maybe, just maybe, I am not beyond mercy. Maybe his love is greater than my betrayal. Maybe there is still a path for me. And so, with shaking steps, I begin to walk toward the rising sun, toward whatever awaits.